The letter arrived on a morning when Philip Zimmerman's hands were still blistered from hauling rope, and it changed everything he thought he knew about bridge building. Philip stood in the muddy construction yard outside the village of Thornwick, reading the cramped handwriting of Mayor Hendricks for the third time. The Bridge Commission had approved his design for the stone crossing over the White Current River, a broad and temperamental waterway that divided the eastern farmlands from the western trade routes. It was the biggest project of Philip's career, the kind of work that could establish his reputation across 3 provinces. But there was a condition that made his stomach twist with uncertainty. Due to the labor shortage caused by the spring flooding and the subsequent repair work throughout the region, we have secured an alternative workforce for your project. An orc construction crew from the northern reaches has been contracted. They come highly recommended for their stonework. The foreman will arrive within the week to discuss specifications. Philip folded the letter and tucked it into his leather satchel, his mind racing. Orcs. He had seen orcs before, passing through towns with merchant caravans or working in the lumber camps near the borderlands, but he had never worked alongside them. The stories he had grown up with painted them as brutal and unpredictable, creatures more comfortable with axes and warfare than with the delicate calculations required for proper engineering. Yet he had also heard whispers of orc craftsmen whose stonework rivaled anything human masons could produce, structures that stood for centuries without a single crack. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of river water and fresh earth. Philip was a practical man, 26 years old with a reputation for solving problems through persistence rather than brilliance. He had apprenticed under master craftsman Aldous for 8 years, learning to read the language of stone and timber, to understand how weight and pressure moved through structures like water through channels. This bridge was his chance to prove he had learned those lessons well. 3 days later, Philip was inspecting the foundation site when he heard the rumble of wagon wheels on the dirt road. He turned, shading his eyes against the afternoon sun, and watched as a convoy of 4 heavy wagons crested the hill. Even from a distance, he could see the distinctive silhouettes of the drivers, broad-shouldered and tall, moving with a purposeful efficiency. Philip wiped his palms on his work trousers and walked toward the road to meet them. His heart hammered in his chest, though he could not quite name the feeling. Nervousness, certainly. Curiosity. Something else that felt uncomfortably close to fear, though he hated admitting it. The lead wagon rolled to a stop 20 feet from where Philip stood. The driver was an orc man, his green skin weathered like old leather, with gray streaks in his black hair. He gave Philip a curt nod before jumping down from the seat with surprising grace for someone his size. Behind him, the other wagons came to rest, and Philip counted 6 more orcs emerging, all wearing practical work clothes stained with road dust. Then she stepped down from the second wagon, and Philip forgot how to breathe properly. She was tall, perhaps 6 feet, with shoulders that spoke of years spent handling heavy stone. Her skin was a deep forest green, darker than the others, and her black hair was pulled back in a thick braid that hung past her shoulder blades. She wore a simple tunic and work trousers, but there was nothing simple about the way she moved, each step deliberate and grounded. Her face was strong-featured, with high cheekbones and a jaw that suggested determination. Small tusks curved up from her lower lip, white against her green skin. When her eyes met Philip's, they were the color of amber lit from within, sharp and assessing. "Philip Zimmerman?" Her voice was deeper than he expected, with a slight accent that rounded her consonants. "Yes," Philip managed, then cleared his throat. "Yes, that is me. You must be the crew from the northern reaches. I am Grisha Thornblade, foreman of this crew." She did not extend her hand, and Philip was not sure if that was orc custom or a deliberate choice. "We have traveled 4 days to reach this site. I would like to see your plans and inspect the foundation work before we make camp." There was no warmth in her tone, but there was also no hostility. She spoke with the directness of someone who valued efficiency over pleasantries. Philip appreciated that, even as he felt distinctly off balance in her presence. "Of course," he said. "My tent is just beyond those supply stacks. I have the full architectural drawings and the engineering calculations there." Grisha turned to her crew and spoke a few words in a language Philip did not recognize, harsh and guttural, but somehow musical in her mouth. The crew began unhitching the wagons and unloading equipment with practiced coordination. Then she followed Philip across the muddy yard toward his work tent. Inside, Philip unrolled the large parchment sheets across his planning table, weighing down the corners with smooth river stones. Grisha leaned over the drawings, her eyes moving methodically across each detail. Philip found himself watching her instead of the plans, noting the way her brow furrowed slightly when she reached the specifications for the foundation piers, the way her fingers traced the arc of the main span. "This is ambitious," she said after a long silence. "A 3-arch stone bridge with this span width will require precise weight distribution. The central pier will bear significant stress during flood season." Philip felt a flash of defensiveness, but her tone was not critical, merely observant. "I have calculated the load-bearing requirements," he said. "The bedrock is solid limestone 20 feet down. We will anchor the foundation piers directly into it. Show me your calculations for the lateral stress during high water." Philip pulled out his secondary sheets, covered in rows of figures and geometric diagrams. Grisha studied them with an intensity that made him nervous, as though she could see every small error or assumption in his work. He had checked these calculations a dozen times, but suddenly he doubted himself. "Your mathematics are sound," Grisha said finally, straightening up. "But you have not accounted for ice formation in winter. This river freezes in hard years, and ice dams can create pressure that will crack poorly seated stones. We will need to adjust the facing angle on the upstream side of each pier." Philip blinked. She was right. He had been so focused on the summer flood season that he had not considered winter conditions. "That is a good point," he admitted. "What angle would you recommend?" 20 degrees from vertical on the upstream face, tapering back to standard at the water line. It will deflect ice and reduce direct pressure. She pulled a piece of charcoal from her belt and sketched the modification directly on his plans with swift, confident strokes. "Like this." Philip leaned in to study her drawing. She smelled like wood smoke, and something herbal he could not identify, not unpleasant. Her hands were scarred and calloused, the hands of someone who did not just plan work but performed it. "That will work," he said. "That will work well, actually." Grisha nodded once, as if his agreement was expected rather than hoped for. "We will begin surveying the site at first light. My crew will need space to set up a forge and a stone cutting station. Where is your supply of raw material?" "There is a quarry 2 miles north," Philip said. "The mayor has arranged for stone delivery, but if you prefer to select the material yourself, I can take you there tomorrow. I always select my own stone." There was a hint of something in her voice, not quite pride but a craftsman's certainty. "Poor material makes poor work, regardless of skill." "Then I will meet you at dawn. The quarry master is expecting us." Grisha studied him for a moment, her amber eyes unreadable. "You are young for a master bridge builder." "I am not a master yet," Philip said. "This is my first solo commission. If I complete it successfully, I will have earned that title. Then we have something in common. This is my first solo commission as foreman. A slight quirk appeared at the corner of her mouth, not quite a smile but the suggestion of one. It seems we both have much to prove. The admission surprised him, and somehow it loosened the knot of tension in his chest. Then I suppose we had better not fail, Philip said. Failure is not acceptable. Grisha rolled up the plans with careful precision. I will have my crew ready to begin foundation work in 3 days. That will give us time to survey, select materials, and prepare the work site properly. She left the tent without another word, ducking through the canvas flap and striding back toward her crew. Philip watched her go, still feeling the strange electricity of her presence. He had expected the orc crew to be competent workers, perhaps even skilled laborers. He had not expected their foreman to be brilliant, and he certainly had not expected to find himself fascinated by the way her mind worked. That night, Philip lay in his bedroll listening to the sounds of the orc camp being established 100 yards away. He could hear their voices, speaking in that harsh, musical language, and the ring of hammers as they assembled structures. The sounds were foreign but not threatening, the ordinary noises of workers making a temporary home. He thought about Grisha's amber eyes and the casual confidence with which she had corrected his plans. He thought about her admission that she, too, was trying to prove herself. The stories he had heard about orcs never mentioned this, the simple humanity of ambition and doubt, the desire to be recognized as skilled. Sleep came slowly, and when it did, his dreams were full of stone arches and green skin, and a voice that spoke with absolute certainty. The quarry was a great wound in the hillside, terraced levels carved out over decades of mining. Philip arrived at dawn as promised, leading a borrowed horse. Grisha was already there, standing at the quarry's edge with 2 of her crew members, surveying the exposed stone faces with a critical eye. "You are punctual," she said without turning. "Good, we have much to examine." The quarry master, a grizzled human named Corbin, approached with obvious discomfort. His eyes flickered between Philip and the orcs, and his hand rested on the knife at his belt. "Zimmerman," he said, "I was not told you would be bringing additional workers." "This is Grisha Thornblade, foreman of my construction crew," Philip said firmly. "She needs to inspect the available stone before we begin deliveries." Corbin's jaw tightened. "Orcs do not usually come into the quarry. We have rules about who works here." Grisha turned her full attention to the quarry master, and Philip saw the man flinch slightly under her gaze. "I am not here to work," she said, her voice level but carrying an edge. "I am here to evaluate the quality of your stone. If it does not meet our standards, we will source material elsewhere and you will lose the contract. If you object to my presence, take it up with the mayor." Corbin looked to Philip, who kept his expression neutral. After a long moment, the quarry master spat into the dirt and gestured toward the quarry entrance. "Fine, but you touch nothing without my permission." Grisha ignored him and started down the access ramp, her 2 crew members following. Philip hurried to catch up, leaving Corbin muttering behind them. Inside the quarry, the morning sun lit the stone faces in shades of gray and pale gold. Grisha moved from terrace to terrace, running her hands over the exposed limestone, tapping it with a small hammer she produced from her belt, listening to the ringing tones. Philip watched, impressed by her methodical approach. She rejected 3 sections of stone that looked perfectly fine to his eyes, pointing out subtle flaws in the grain or weak points where water had seeped into fissures. "Here," she said finally, placing her palm flat against a broad section of stone on the 3rd terrace. "This is what we need. Good density, consistent grain, no water damage. We will take blocks from this face." Philip examined the stone himself, and even with his trained eye he could barely distinguish it from the sections Grisha had rejected. "How can you tell the difference?" he asked. "Experience," Grisha said. "And listening. Good stone has a voice, a certain ring when struck. Weak stone sounds hollow or dull. You learn to hear the difference." One of her crew members, a younger orc with bright green skin and an eager expression, said something in their language. Grisha responded and the young orc laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. "What did he say?" Philip asked. Grisha glanced at him, and that almost smile appeared again. "Drogath said you watch me like a student watches a teacher. I told him you are smart enough to know when you have something to learn." Philip felt heat rise to his face, though he could not tell if it was embarrassment or something else. "Your expertise is obvious," he said. "I would be a fool not to pay attention. Most humans would be too proud to admit an orc knows more than they do about stonework." "Then most humans are letting pride make them stupid," Philip said. "My master always said the moment you stop learning is the moment your work begins to fail." Grisha studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded once, as if he had passed some unspoken test. "Your master was wise. Come, we need to mark the blocks for cutting." They spent the next 2 hours marking sections of the stone face with chalk, calculating the sizes needed for foundation blocks, pier stones, and arch voussoirs. Grisha's knowledge was comprehensive, and Philip found himself asking questions, genuinely curious about her methods. She answered with patience, explaining the techniques her clan had developed over generations of stonework. "We built the fortifications at Cragmont," she said as they worked. "The old fortress in the northern reaches. It has stood for 300 years without a single wall cracking. That is the standard I hold my work to." "I have heard of Cragmont," Philip said. "I did not know it was orc-built. Most humans do not. They see the fortress and assume human engineers created it. They cannot imagine orcs capable of such work." There was no bitterness in her voice, just a statement of fact. "That is why I take commissions like this, to prove what we can do where people will see it, will know it." Philip understood then, at least partly, what drove her. This bridge was not just a job or a stepping stone in a career. It was a declaration, a piece of evidence that could not be denied or attributed to someone else. "We will build a bridge that stands for 300 years, he said. Together, Grisha looked at him, and for the first time he saw something soften in her expression. "Yes," she said, "we will." They returned to the worksite as the afternoon sun angled toward evening. Corbin had agreed, reluctantly, to begin delivering the marked stones in 2 days. Grisha's crew had already begun preparing the foundation site, clearing away the topsoil and vegetation to expose the underlying ground. Over the following days, Philip found himself drawn into the rhythm of the orc crew's work. They began each morning before dawn, moving with a coordinated efficiency that spoke of years working together. Grisha directed them with minimal words, her crew understanding her intentions from a gesture or a single phrase in their language. Philip tried to learn a few words, stumbling over the harsh sounds, and was rewarded with grins from the younger crew members when he managed something approximating proper pronunciation. The village of Thornwick watched the work with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Merchants who delivered supplies to the site treated the orcs with cool professionalism at best and open hostility at worst. Grisha handled it all with dignified silence, never rising to provocations, never showing offense. But Philip saw the way her jaw tightened when a baker refused to sell bread to her crew, or when children threw stones from a distance, shouting slurs. One evening, after a particularly difficult day dealing with a grain merchant who tried to charge triple prices for oat sacks, Philip approached Grisha at her camp. She was sitting by the fire, sharpening a chisel with long, methodical strokes. "I am sorry for how you have been treated here," Philip said. Grisha did not look up from her work. "Do not apologize for the actions of others. You are not responsible for their ignorance. Still, it is wrong. Your crew works harder than any human laborers I have seen, and the skill level is exceptional. They deserve respect. Respect is earned through results, not words." She tested the chisel edge with her thumb. "When this bridge is complete, when it carries wagons and people safely across the river for years to come, then we will have their respect, or at least their grudging acknowledgement." Philip sat down on a nearby log, uninvited but not unwelcome. "Does it not bother you, though? The way they look at you, the things they say." Grisha was quiet for a moment, the rasp of stone on metal the only sound. "I grew up on the border between orc lands and human territories," she said finally. "My father was a stone mason, one of the best. He taught me everything he knew, told me I had a gift for seeing how structures should fit together. But when he died, his human clients refused to work with me, said they would not take orders from an orc girl, no matter how skilled. So I went north, worked for orc clans who valued ability over appearance, built my reputation piece by piece. This contract is the first time a human settlement has hired me directly, without going through intermediaries who hide the fact that I am orc until the work is done." "Then Thornwick is fortunate to have you," Philip said, "even if they are too stubborn to see it yet." Grisha looked at him then, really looked at him, and Philip felt the weight of her attention like a physical thing. "You are different from what I expected," she said. "When I heard the bridge builder was a young human with no major projects to his name, I thought I would be working with an arrogant fool who would resist every suggestion, who would take credit for my crew's work and blame us for any problems." "I am not that different from your expectations," Philip said with a slight smile. "I am certainly young and inexperienced, but my master beat the arrogance out of me in my first year of apprenticeship. He made me carry stones for 6 months before he let me touch a single design tool. Said I needed to understand the material before I could hope to shape it." "Your master and my father would have gotten along well," Grisha said. She set down the chisel and whetstone. "You are hungry. Share our meal." It was not quite an invitation, more a statement of fact, but Philip accepted. The crew had made a stew of venison and root vegetables, seasoned with herbs that gave it a complex, earthy flavor. They ate from wooden bowls, sitting around the fire as the sky darkened to indigo. The orcs spoke in their own language, occasionally translating for Philip's benefit when the conversation touched on work matters. Philip found himself laughing at stories about construction disasters and difficult clients, the universal experiences that transcended species. Grisha sat beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her body in the cooling evening air. She had pushed up the sleeves of her tunic, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with small scars. Philip found his eyes drawn to the patterns of lighter and darker green in her skin, the way the firelight made her tusks gleam white. He realized he was staring and quickly looked away, but not before Grisha noticed. She did not comment, but he thought he saw a flicker of something in her expression, gone too quickly to name. The foundation work began in earnest the following week. Grisha's crew excavated the pier sites with impressive speed, digging down through layers of soil and clay to reach the bedrock beneath. Philip worked alongside them, no longer just supervising but participating fully in the physical labor. His muscles ached at the end of each day, but there was satisfaction in the work, in seeing the foundation take shape beneath their combined efforts. Grisha directed the placement of each foundation stone with exacting precision, using levels and plumb lines to ensure perfect alignment. She rejected stones that were even slightly out of true, insisting they be recut rather than shimmed or adjusted. Philip appreciated her perfectionism, even as it slowed the work. Better to take the time now than to have the bridge fail later. They fell into an easy working relationship, communicating often without words. Philip would catch Grisha's eye and understand from her expression whether a stone was properly seated. She would glance at his calculations and nod or shake her head, trusting his mathematical judgment while offering practical insights he had missed. Late one afternoon, as they were setting the final capstone on the first foundation pier, Grisha's hand brushed against Philip's. It was accidental, both of them reaching for the same tool, but the contact sent a jolt through Philip's entire body. Grisha pulled back immediately, her expression carefully neutral, but Philip saw the tension in her shoulders. "Sorry," he said, the word inadequate. "No harm done." Grisha's voice was steady, but she did not meet his eyes. The moment passed, but Philip could not stop thinking about it. He found himself increasingly aware of Grisha's presence, of the sound of her voice directing her crew, of the way she moved through the construction site with absolute confidence. He told himself it was admiration for her skill, professional respect, nothing more. But late at night in his tent, he admitted to himself that he was lying. The realization terrified him. Attraction between humans and orcs was not just uncommon, it was taboo, forbidden by social convention and religious doctrine. He had heard stories of such relationships ending in violence, with both parties rejected by their communities. And beyond the social consequences, there was the practical matter that Grisha had given him no indication that she saw him as anything other than a colleague. She was focused entirely on the work, on proving herself through this bridge. Anything that threatened that focus would be unwelcome. So Philip buried his feelings and focused on the work. The foundation piers rose steadily, solid columns of precisely fitted stone anchored deep in the bedrock. The first arch would span from the western bank to the central pier, a curve of calculated grace that would need to support the weight of fully loaded wagons. Grisha designed a wooden framework to support the arch stones during construction, a complex scaffolding that would hold everything in place until the keystone was set. Philip had used similar frameworks before, but Grisha's design was more elegant, using the natural curve of bent timbers to minimize the amount of structural support needed. "This is ingenious," Philip said, studying the plans she had drawn. "How did you design this?" "Observation," Grisha said. "Trees bend in wind but do not break because the curve distributes the stress. I applied the same principle to the framework. The timber wants to curve this way, so we use that natural tendency rather than fighting against it." "Biomimicry," Philip said, "learning from nature." "My master mentioned the concept, but said few engineers truly understood how to apply it." Grisha gave him one of her rare, genuine smiles. "Your master continues to prove his wisdom." The smile transformed her face, softening the hard edges, making her eyes warm. Philip's breath caught, and he had to force himself to look back at the plans before he did something foolish like tell her she was beautiful. The framework construction took 2 weeks, every piece carefully fitted and tested before they began placing the arch stones. The first stone was set on a bright morning in early summer, the sky clear and blue, the river running calm and silver below them. Philip and Grisha stood on the western pier, supervising as the crew used a pulley system to lift the heavy voussoir into position. "Ready?" Grisha asked, her hand on the rope that would lower the stone into place. "Ready," Philip confirmed, checking his measurements one final time. The stone descended, guided by careful hands, and settled into its prepared position with a satisfying thunk. Grisha checked its alignment with her level, made a tiny adjustment, then nodded. Perfect. Next stone. They worked through the day, placing stone after stone in the ascending curve of the arch. Each piece had to fit precisely. The joints tight enough to prevent water infiltration, but with enough give to allow for thermal expansion and contraction. It was painstaking work, requiring total concentration from everyone involved. By evening, they had completed a quarter of the first arch. The curve was beginning to take shape, reaching up and out from the pier like a stone rainbow. Philip stood back to admire their progress, and Grisha came to stand beside him. "It is beautiful," he said softly. "It is functional," Grisha corrected, but there was warmth in her voice. "Beauty is incidental to good engineering." "I disagree," Philip said. "I think beauty is the natural result of things built correctly, of form following function. When we create something that works exactly as it should, that harmony creates beauty." Grisha tilted her head, considering. "Perhaps you are right. My father used to say that stone knows its proper shape, and our job as masons is simply to help it find that form. Maybe that is the same idea." They stood in companionable silence, watching the sun sink toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The stone of the arch gleamed in the evening light, and Philip felt a surge of pride mixed with something more complex, a feeling that included the woman standing beside him as much as the work they were creating together. "Grisha," he began, not sure what he intended to say but feeling the need to say something. A shout interrupted him. Philip turned to see a group of men on horseback approaching from the direction of Thornwick, perhaps a dozen riders moving at a purposeful pace. His stomach sank. The leader was Aldrich Vance, a local landowner who had vocally opposed the bridge project, claiming it would bring unwanted travelers through his property. "Trouble," Grisha said quietly, her hand moving to rest on a hammer at her belt. The riders pulled up at the edge of the construction site, their horses snorting and stamping. Aldrich dismounted, a tall man with a neatly trimmed beard and expensive clothes. His eyes swept over the orc crew with undisguised contempt. "Zimmerman," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. "I have just learned that you have employed monsters to build our bridge. This is unacceptable." Philip stepped forward, positioning himself between Aldrich and Grisha. "The crew I hire is my concern, not yours. They are skilled workers completing a commissioned project." "They are orcs," Aldrich spat. "Barely civilized brutes who will probably collapse the bridge the first time it rains. I am calling for an immediate halt to construction until proper human workers can be found." "You have no authority to halt anything," Philip said, keeping his voice level despite the anger building in his chest. "The mayor and the bridge commission approved this project and this crew. If you have complaints, take them to the proper authorities." Aldrich's face reddened. "I am taking them to you. I will not have my family's safety endangered by shoddy orc construction. Everyone knows they cannot be trusted with real craftsmanship." Grisha stepped forward then, moving to stand beside Philip rather than behind him. "Your concern is noted," she said, her voice cold and precise. "However, your ignorance of construction standards is showing. This bridge is being built to specifications that exceed regional requirements. Every stone has been individually inspected and approved. The foundation is anchored in bedrock and rated to withstand flood conditions significantly beyond historical records. If you question the quality of the work, I invite you to hire an independent engineer to inspect what we have completed. You will find no faults." Aldrich looked at her with barely concealed rage. "I do not take invitations from monsters, and I certainly will not allow this abomination to continue." He turned to his men. "Tear down what they have built. We will show the mayor that orc work is worthless." The riders moved forward, and Philip's heart hammered in his chest. Grisha's crew had formed a loose line between the riders and the construction site, their expressions hard. This could turn violent in an instant. "Stop!" Philip's voice cracked like a whip, louder than he had ever spoken before. "Touch one stone, interfere with this work in any way, and I will have you arrested for destruction of commissioned public property. The mayor may tolerate your complaints, Aldrich, but he will not tolerate sabotage." "You would take their side," Aldrich demanded. "Choose monsters over your own kind." "I choose competence over bigotry," Philip shot back. "And I choose to honor my contracts. This crew was hired to build a bridge, and that is exactly what they are doing. If you cannot accept that, then leave." The confrontation hung in the balance for a long moment, tension thick enough to taste. Then Aldrich remounted his horse with sharp, angry movements. "This is not over, Zimmerman. The mayor will hear about your preference for monsters over civilized labor. We will see how long your career survives." He wheeled his horse and rode off, his men following. Philip watched until they were out of sight, his hands trembling with adrenaline and anger. "Thank you," Grisha said quietly. "You did not have to defend us like that." "Yes, I did," Philip said. "You are my crew, and more than that, you are right. The work you are doing here is exceptional. I will not let ignorant men tear it down because of their prejudices." Grisha looked at him with an expression Philip could not quite read, something that might have been gratitude or respect or something deeper. "You may have made an enemy today," she said. "Then it was worth it," Philip replied. That night, Philip received a summons to meet with Mayor Hendricks in Thornwick. He rode into the village the following morning, his stomach tight with apprehension. The mayor's office was in the town hall, a modest stone building at the center of the village square. Mayor Hendricks was a round, balding man with shrewd eyes and a politician's smile. He gestured for Philip to sit, then folded his hands on his desk. "I have received complaints about your work practices, Zimmerman. Aldrich Vance and several other landowners are concerned about the use of orc labor on the bridge project. The orc crew was assigned to this project by the Bridge Commission," Philip said carefully. "I was informed it was the only available option due to labor shortages." "That is correct," the mayor agreed. "However, I did not anticipate the level of resistance from certain community members. Aldrich is threatening to fund opposition to my re-election if I do not intervene. He has influence and he is using it." Philip's heart sank. "Are you asking me to dismiss the crew?" "I am asking you to consider the political realities," Hendricks said. "If this becomes a major controversy, it could undermine support for the bridge entirely. Perhaps it would be better to pause construction until we can find alternative labor." "With respect, Mayor, that would be a terrible decision," Philip said. "The orc crew is doing exceptional work. The bridge they are building will be stronger and more durable than anything a hastily assembled human crew could produce. If we dismiss them now, we lose their expertise and we set back the project by months. Moreover, we break a contract, which will damage our reputation with other skilled workers." "I understand your professional concerns," Hendricks said, "but I also have to balance the concerns of the community." "Then bring the community to see the work site," Philip said. "Let them inspect what we have built. Invite them to consult independent engineers. The quality of the construction will speak for itself." The mayor considered this, tapping his fingers on the desk. "That could work," he said slowly. "Public demonstration of quality might ease concerns. Very well, I will arrange a site inspection for next week. But Zimmerman, the work must be flawless. If there are any issues, any reason to question the crew's competence, I will have no choice but to intervene." "Understood," Philip said. "You will not be disappointed." He rode back to the worksite feeling the weight of pressure settle on his shoulders. Everything now depended on the inspection, on proving beyond doubt that Grisha and her crew were worthy of trust. When he arrived, Grisha was directing the placement of another arch stone. Philip waited until she finished, then explained the situation. She listened without interruption, her expression growing harder with each sentence. "An inspection," she said flatly, "to prove we are competent." "As if our work does not already demonstrate that." "I know," Philip said. "It is unfair, but it is also an opportunity. If we can satisfy the mayor and the inspectors, Aldrich loses his leverage. The work continues and you get full credit for what you have built." Grisha was silent for a long moment, staring at the incomplete arch. "Very well," she said finally. "We will prepare for their inspection, and we will show them Orc craftsmanship is beyond reproach." The following week was a flurry of focused activity. Grisha had her crew work with even more precision than usual, every joint perfect, every measurement triple-checked. They cleaned the construction site meticulously, organized tools and materials, prepared documentation of their techniques and quality control measures. Philip helped where he could, compiling his engineering calculations and preparing explanations of the design principles. On the morning of the inspection, a group of 20 people arrived at the site. Mayor Hendricks led them, accompanied by Aldrich and 2 men Philip recognized as engineers from the capital. Behind them came curious townspeople and several merchants. Grisha stood straight-backed and proud beside the half-completed first arch, her crew arrayed behind her. Philip took a position next to her, presenting a united front. "Welcome to the White Current Bridge construction site," Philip said. "We are pleased to show you the work in progress and answer any questions you may have." The inspection lasted 3 hours. The capital engineers examined every aspect of the construction, from the foundation depth to the stone quality to the arch framework. They measured joints, tested mortar, reviewed calculations. Grisha answered their technical questions with calm expertise, never defensive, always precise. Philip provided the theoretical engineering explanations while Grisha offered practical implementation details. The crowd watched in silence as the engineers conferred quietly among themselves. Finally, the senior engineer, a gray-haired woman named Marta, addressed the mayor. "Your Honor, this is some of the finest stonework I have seen in 30 years of practice," she said clearly. "The foundation exceeds specification requirements. The arch construction demonstrates advanced understanding of stress distribution. The quality control measures are exemplary. I see no reason for concern about this project. In fact, I would recommend this crew for other regional projects based on what I have observed here." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Aldrich's face went red, then pale. "That is impossible," he protested. "Orcs cannot possibly. I have evaluated the work objectively based on engineering standards," Marta cut him off. "The species of the workers is irrelevant. The quality is exceptional. Any other conclusion would be dishonest." Mayor Hendricks looked relieved. "There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. An independent professional assessment confirms the bridge project is proceeding admirably. I see no reason to interfere with Master Zimmerman and Foreman Thornblade's work. The project will continue as planned." The crowd began to disperse, some still skeptical but unable to argue with the expert testimony. Aldrich stormed off without another word, his handful of supporters following. Philip felt the tension drain from his body, leaving him almost lightheaded with relief. "Thank you, Engineer Marta," he said. The older woman smiled. "No thanks necessary. I call things as I see them, and what I see here is master-level craftsmanship. You have an excellent crew, Zimmerman. Do not let fools convince you otherwise. After the inspectors left, Grisha turned to Philip. Her expression was carefully controlled, but he saw the emotion flickering in her amber eyes. "You fought for us," she said quietly. "Twice now. You risked your professional reputation for an orc crew." "I fought for quality work and basic fairness," Philip said. "Nothing more." "It was more," Grisha insisted. "To us, it was more." Her crew had gathered around, all watching Philip with expressions ranging from gratitude to respect. The young orc, Drogath, stepped forward and placed a closed fist over his heart, a gesture Philip did not understand but felt the significance of. "You honor us, bridge builder," Drogath said in heavily accented but clear human language. "We will not forget this." Philip felt his throat tighten with unexpected emotion. "The honor is mine," he managed. "Working with all of you has been a privilege." The crew dispersed to celebrate in their own way, leaving Philip and Grisha alone by the river. The water rushed past, indifferent to the drama that had played out on its banks. "I need to tell you something," Philip said, the words coming before he could stop them. Grisha looked at him, waiting. "This project, this bridge, it has become more important to me than just advancing my career," Philip continued. "Working alongside you, learning from you, seeing your dedication and skill. It has changed how I think about my work, and it has changed how I think about a lot of other things." "What things?" Grisha's voice was soft, almost cautious. Philip took a breath, knowing he was about to step off a cliff but unable to stop himself. "You asked me once if the way townspeople treated you bothered you. The truth is, it bothers me more than I want to admit. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped being just a colleague to me. You have become important. And watching people dismiss you or treat you with contempt when you are one of the most remarkable people I have ever met, it makes me angry in a way I have never felt before." Grisha stared at him, her expression unreadable. The silence stretched between them, and Philip began to regret his honesty. "Philip," she said finally, "do you understand what you are saying? The implications of those words?" "I think so," he said. "I know that I value your presence in my life. I know that I look forward to seeing you each morning. I know that when you smile, rare as it is, my whole day becomes brighter. If that makes me foolish or inappropriate, then so be it. But I cannot pretend otherwise anymore." Grisha turned away, looking out over the river. Philip watched the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands clenched and unclenched. "I cannot afford this," she said quietly. "This attachment, these feelings. I came here to build a bridge to prove that orcs can be trusted with important work. Anything that distracts from that goal, anything that gives people more reason to question my professionalism, I cannot allow it." Philip felt the words like a physical blow, but he forced himself to nod. "I understand. I apologize if I made you uncomfortable." "You do not understand," Grisha said, turning back to face him. Her eyes were bright, fierce. "You do not understand how much I want to be distracted. How many nights I have lain awake thinking about the way you look at me, the way you defend me without hesitation, the way your mind works in harmony with mine when we solve problems together. You do not understand how terrifying it is to want something I cannot have." Philip's heart hammered in his chest. "Why can you not have it?" "Because I am orc and you are human," Grisha said, her voice rough with emotion. "Because any relationship between us would be seen as scandalous at best, monstrous at worst. Because my clan already questions my choice to work among humans, and this would confirm their worst fears. Because your career would be destroyed by association with me. Because there are 100 reasons why this is impossible, and I cannot think of a single good reason why it should be possible." "I can think of one," Philip said, stepping closer. "Because we want it. Because against all logic and social convention I have fallen for you, Grisha Thornblade, and I hope, that maybe you feel something similar." Grisha closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, there were tears glistening on her dark green cheeks. Wanting something does not make it wise or possible. "No," Philip agreed, "but it makes it worth considering. Look, I am not asking you to make any decisions right now. I am not asking you to risk your reputation or your goals. All I am asking is that you acknowledge what is between us, that you do not pretend it does not exist." "And what happens when the bridge is complete?" Grisha asked. "When my crew returns north and you move on to your next project?" "This ends in separation no matter what we do." "Maybe," Philip said. "Or maybe we find a way forward that neither of us has imagined yet, but we will never know if we do not try." Grisha reached out, hesitating for a moment before placing her hand against Philip's cheek. Her palm was rough with calluses, warm. Philip leaned into the touch, his eyes closing. "You are either very brave or very foolish," she said. "Probably both," Philip admitted. Grisha's thumb traced across his cheekbone, a gentle gesture that contrasted with her strong, scarred hands. Then she pulled back, the moment breaking. "We should return to work," she said. "The arch will not complete itself." "Grisha, please, Philip, I need time to think. This is not a decision I can make impulsively." He nodded, respecting her need for space even as every part of him wanted to push further, to understand what she was feeling. "Take all the time you need." They returned to the construction site, slipping back into their professional roles. But something had shifted between them, an acknowledgement that hung in the air even when they did not speak of it. Philip caught Grisha watching him when she thought he was not looking, and he knew his own gaze lingered on her far too often. The days passed in focused labor. The first arch reached completion, the final keystone set in place with ceremony and precision. When the supporting framework was removed and the arch stood on its own, bearing its weight through calculated compression, Philip felt a surge of triumph. But the moment was incomplete without being able to share it fully with Grisha, without being able to express how much her partnership had meant to creating this beautiful, functional thing. They began work on the second arch, spanning from the central pier to the eastern pier. The techniques were now familiar, the crew working with smooth efficiency. Summer deepened, bringing longer days and warmer weather. Philip and Grisha fell into a rhythm of work and unspoken longing, circling around each other like binary stars, held together by gravity but never quite touching. One evening, after the crew had retired to their camp, Philip remained at the site, making notes on the day's progress. He heard footsteps and looked up to see Grisha approaching through the twilight. "You work too late," she said. "So do you. I saw you adjusting stone positions after dinner." Grisha sat down beside him on the riverbank, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "I have been thinking," she said, "about what you said, about what we want versus what is possible." Philip set down his notes, giving her his full attention. "My whole life, I have been told what I cannot do because I am orc," Grisha continued. "I cannot work with humans because they will not respect me. I cannot lead because I am female. I cannot aspire to master craftsmanship because orcs are suited only for rough labor. Every one of those limitations I have defied. I have built a career by refusing to accept what I am told is impossible." "You have," Philip agreed softly. "So why should I accept the impossibility of caring for you?" Grisha turned to face him fully. "Why should I let fear or social convention dictate my choices when I have never done so before?" Philip's heart felt too large for his chest. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that you are right. There are 100 reasons why this is impossible. But there is one reason why it might be worth trying anyway, and that reason is sitting beside me right now, looking at me like I am the most important thing in his world." "You are," Philip said. "You have become exactly that." Grisha leaned forward slowly, giving Philip every opportunity to pull away. He did not. Her lips met his, soft despite the tusks, warm and slightly uncertain. Philip reached up to cup her face, feeling the texture of her skin under his palms, kissing her back with all the pent-up longing of the past weeks. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Grisha rested her forehead against Philip's, her eyes closed. "This will not be easy," she said. "I know. People will judge us, may hate us for this choice. I know. Your career could suffer. My clan may reject me entirely." "I know," Philip said again. "And I still want you, if you will have me." Grisha pulled back to look at him, and the smile that spread across her face was radiant, transforming. "Then it seems we are both fools together." They kissed again, longer this time, learning the shape and taste of each other. When they finally returned to their separate camps, Philip felt like he was floating, untethered from the earth. Every doubt and fear still existed, but they seemed smaller now, manageable, things to be dealt with rather than insurmountable obstacles. The next morning, Philip arrived at the construction site to find Grisha already there as usual. But when she saw him, she smiled. A private thing meant only for him. The crew noticed the change immediately, exchanging knowing looks and grins. Dragath said something in their language that made Grisha blush, an expression Philip had never seen on her before. "What did he say?" Philip asked. "He said it is about time we stopped circling each other like nervous deer," Grisha translated, shooting a mock glare at her grinning crew member. The work continued, but now it was punctuated with small moments of connection. Grisha's hand lingering on Philip's shoulder as she checked his measurements, Philip bringing her water during the hottest part of the day. Shared smiles and brief conversations that had nothing to do with bridge construction. The second arch rose steadily, and they began planning for the third and final span. The bridge was taking shape, a graceful series of stone curves that transformed the river crossing from an obstacle into an invitation. Travelers began stopping to watch the work, and Philip noticed the tone of their comments changing. Where before there had been suspicion and hostility toward the orc crew, now there was grudging respect, even admiration. A merchant from the eastern farmlands approached Philip one afternoon, asking if Grisha might be available for a commission to build a stone warehouse. Philip directed him to speak with Grisha directly, and he watched with pride as she discussed specifications and timelines with the merchant in a professional, confident manner. "You are getting recognized," Philip said that evening as they walked along the riverbank together, far enough from both camps to have privacy. "Thanks to you," Grisha said. "If you had not defended us, if you had not insisted on the public inspection, none of this would be happening." "I only created the opportunity," Philip said. "Your work speaks for itself. People can see quality when it is right in front of them, even if they initially did not want to acknowledge it." Grisha took his hand, her larger fingers intertwining with his. The gesture still felt new, thrilling. "When this bridge is complete," she said, "I will have more commissions in human territories, but I will also need to return north, at least temporarily, to settle affairs with my clan." Philip's stomach tightened. "Will they give you trouble about us?" "Probably," Grisha admitted. "Interspecies relationships are not common among my people either. There are those who will see it as a betrayal, choosing a human over an orc partner. But my father taught me to live according to my own judgment, not the expectations of others. I will make them understand, or I will accept their rejection and move forward regardless." "I will come with you," Philip said, "if you want, to show them that I am serious about you, about us." Grisha stopped walking and turned to face him fully. "You would do that? Come into orc territory where you would be the outsider, the one judged and potentially rejected?" Of course, Philip said. You have faced that every day here in human lands. I can do the same for you. Grisha kissed him then, deep and passionate, her arms wrapping around him tightly. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright with emotion. I do not deserve you. That is absolutely wrong, Philip said firmly. If anything, I am the one who does not deserve you, but I am going to try to be worthy of you every day for as long as you will let me. The summer progressed, bringing them closer to completion of the bridge and deeper into their relationship. They were careful to maintain professionalism at the work site, but in the evenings, they stole moments together, walking by the river or sitting beneath the stars, talking about everything and nothing. Philip learned about Grisha's childhood in the borderlands, about her father's patient teaching and her mother's fierce protectiveness. Grisha learned about Philip's apprenticeship, about the demanding perfectionism of Master Aldous, and the way he had shaped Philip's approach to engineering. They shared dreams and fears, past hurts and future hopes. The third arch began to take shape, the final piece that would complete the bridge. Philip felt a bittersweet mix of pride and sadness. This beautiful thing they had created together was almost finished, which meant their time working side by side was coming to an end. One afternoon, as they were setting stones for the final arch, a commotion arose from the direction of Thornwick. Philip looked up to see a large group of people approaching, perhaps 40 or 50. His first thought was that Aldrich had returned with reinforcements, but as they drew closer, he realized these were not angry landowners but ordinary townspeople. Mayor Hendricks led them, and when they reached the construction site, he raised his hand for attention. Master Zimmerman, Foreman Thornblade, a moment of your time, please. Philip and Grisha exchanged concerned glances but climbed down from the arch framework. The crowd formed a rough semicircle around them. We have come to apologize, the mayor said, his voice carrying clearly. When this project began, many of us harbored prejudice and suspicion toward the Orc crew. We treated them poorly, judged them unfairly, and made assumptions based on ignorance rather than evidence. We have watched you build this bridge with skill and dedication, and we have seen how Master Zimmerman and Foreman Thornblade work together with mutual respect and collaboration. We have learned that our prejudices were wrong, and we wish to make amends. A woman stepped forward from the crowd, a baker Philip recognized as one who had refused service to the Orc crew early in the project. We have brought food and drink as a gesture of goodwill, she said. To share with the crew if you will accept it, and to ask forgiveness for our previous behavior. Grisha stood very still, her expression carefully controlled. Philip could feel the tension radiating from her. After a long moment she spoke. Apologies mean little without changed actions. But I accept your gesture, and I hope that this bridge serves as a reminder of what can be built when we work together rather than against each other. The crowd murmured approval, and people began setting out baskets of bread, cheese, fruit, and barrels of ale. Grisha's crew emerged from their work positions, cautious but curious. The gathering that followed was tentative at first, but slowly, conversations began. Townspeople asked questions about the construction techniques. Orc crew members shared stories about other projects they had completed. Language barriers and cultural differences made some exchanges awkward, but there was genuine effort on both sides to bridge the gap. Philip watched Grisha move through the gathering, accepting thanks and answering questions with her characteristic directness. He saw the way people's faces changed as they spoke with her, prejudices crumbling in the face of her obvious competence and dignity. Drogath appeared at Philip's side, grinning broadly. "This is good day," he said in his improving human language. "People see us now. Really see." "It is a very good day," Philip agreed. And you and Foreman Grisha, Drogath continued, his grin becoming knowing. This is also good. She is happier now. We all see this too. Philip felt heat rise to his face. Is it that obvious to us? Yes, Drogath said. We know her well. She smiles more, worries less. This is because of you. You are good for her. She is good for me too, Philip said quietly. The celebration continued into the evening, and Philip realized this was a turning point, not just for the bridge project but for the community's relationship with orcs. What they had built here was more than a physical structure. It was a bridge between peoples, a foundation for future understanding. Late that night, after the townspeople had returned home and the crew had retired, Philip and Grisha sat together by the river. The bridge loomed behind them, nearly complete, its 3 arches spanning the water in elegant curves. Today was remarkable, Philip said. It was unexpected, Grisha agreed. I have worked many projects, but I have never received an apology from a community before. Usually, I just take my payment and leave, and they never think of me again except as that orc crew who did decent work. You have made an impression here that will not be forgotten, Philip said. This bridge will stand for centuries, and people will remember who built it. Grisha leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture of trust and affection that still made Philip's heart race. I have been thinking about what comes after, she said, when the bridge is complete. And I do not want us to end when the project ends, Grisha said. I want to find a way for us to continue to build more than just bridges together. I want that too, Philip said, more than anything. Then I have a proposal, Grisha said, sitting up to face him. Come north with me when we finish here. Meet my clan, see the lands where I grew up. Then we can decide together where to go next, what projects to take on. I have been thinking that a partnership between a human engineer and an orc foreman could be valuable, could open doors that neither of us could access alone. Philip felt excitement and nervousness warring in his chest. A formal partnership? Why not? We work well together. Your theoretical knowledge and my practical experience complement each other, and more than that, I want to build a life with you, Philip. Not just a career, but a real life together, if you want that too. I do, Philip said, pulling her close. I absolutely do, yes to all of it, the partnership, meeting your clan, building a life together. Yes. They sealed the agreement with a kiss, and Philip felt like the foundation of his future was settling into place, solid and sure as the bedrock beneath the bridge piers. The final weeks of construction passed in a blur of focused activity. The 3rd arch was completed, the roadbed was laid across the top of the spans, and the approach ramps were graded and surfaced. The bridge stood complete, ready to serve its purpose. The official dedication ceremony was scheduled for a bright autumn morning. The mayor organized a celebration, inviting officials from neighboring towns and regional administrators. A ribbon was stretched across the bridge's entrance, ready to be cut. Philip stood at the western approach, wearing his best clothes, feeling simultaneously proud and nervous. Grisha stood beside him, her crew arrayed behind her. They had all dressed in formal attire, the orcs wearing traditional decorated vests over their work clothes. Mayor Hendricks gave a speech about progress and community, praising the quality of the work and thanking both Philip and Grisha by name. Then he invited them to jointly cut the ribbon and officially open the bridge. Philip and Grisha stepped forward together, each taking one handle of a large ceremonial scissors. Their hands touched on the metal, and Philip felt the significance of the moment settle over him. This bridge was their creation, born from shared vision and collaborative effort. It represented everything they had overcome and everything they hoped to build in the future. Together, they cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered. The first wagon rolled across the bridge, a farmer's cart loaded with autumn vegetables, and the bridge held firm, solid. doing exactly what it was designed to do. People streamed across after the first wagon, testing the structure, admiring the craftsmanship. Philip heard comments about the smoothness of the stone, the grace of the arches, the obvious quality of construction. He saw Grisha accepting congratulations from town officials and engineers, her professional demeanor firmly in place, but her eyes bright with satisfaction. Engineer Marta, who had conducted the original inspection, sought out Philip specifically. "Exceptional work, Zimmerman. This bridge will be studied as an example of proper engineering for decades. You should be very proud." "Thank you," Philip said. "But the credit belongs as much to Foreman Thornblade and her crew as to me. I could not have built this without them." "I know," Marta said with a knowing smile. "And the fact that you acknowledge that speaks well of your character. Master Aldous would be proud of you." The celebration continued through the day. As evening approached, Philip found Grisha standing alone on the bridge, looking down at the water flowing beneath. "What are you thinking?" he asked, joining her. "That this is the best work I have ever done," Grisha said. "Not just the technical aspects, but all of it. The challenges we overcame, the minds we changed, the bridge we built between more than just riverbanks." She turned to look at him. "And that I found something here I was not looking for but needed more than I knew. I found you." Philip took her hand, not caring who might see. "When do we leave for the northern reaches?" "3 days," Grisha said. "My crew needs time to pack equipment and rest before the journey. You are certain you want to come? It is not too late to change your mind." "I am not changing my mind," Philip said firmly. "I am coming with you. We are partners now in work and in life. Where you go, I go." Grisha squeezed his hand, and Philip saw the vulnerability in her expression, the hope mixed with lingering fear. "My clan can be harsh in their judgments. They may not accept us easily." "Then we will convince them," Philip said, "or we will forge our own path. Whatever happens, we will face it together." The journey north took 2 weeks, traveling through gradually changing landscape, as they left the settled farmlands and entered the borderlands where human and orc territories blurred together. The orc crew was in high spirits, heading home after a successful contract, but Philip felt increasing nervousness as they drew closer to their destination. Grisha's clan lived in a settlement called Stonehaven, built into and around a series of natural rock formations. As they approached, Philip saw the evidence of master stonework everywhere, buildings that seemed to grow out of the living rock, walls that followed natural contours rather than fighting against them. The clan's reception was cautious. Orc men and women emerged from buildings to watch the wagon train arrive, their expressions curious but reserved. An older orc, his green skin weathered almost to gray, approached as the wagon stopped. He wore a decorated vest that suggested authority, and his eyes went immediately to Grisha. "Daughter," he said, his voice deep and gravelly, "you return, and you bring a human into our home." "Father," Grisha said, and Philip realized this was her father who she had said was dead. The confusion must have shown on his face because Grisha clarified. "My foster father, Cragath Ironhand. He raised me after my birth parents died. Philip, this is the head of the Stonehaven clan." Philip stepped forward, trying to project confidence he did not entirely feel. "I am honored to be welcomed to your home, clan head Cragath." Cragath studied Philip with eyes that missed nothing. "Grisha speaks of you in her letters. Says you are a skilled bridge builder, that you defended her crew against prejudice, but she did not say you were her lover." The blunt statement made Philip flinch, but he held Cragath's gaze. "I am that as well if Grisha claims me as such." "I do," Grisha said firmly. "Philip is my partner in work and in heart. I have brought him here to meet my clan and to seek your blessing for our union." Murmurs rippled through the gathered orcs. Kragath's expression was unreadable. "This is unusual," he said. "Orcs and humans do not typically form such bonds. There will be those in the clan who disapprove, who see it as a rejection of our ways." "I am not rejecting our ways," Grisha said. "I am choosing to live according to my own judgment as you taught me. Philip has proven himself worthy of my respect and my love. What I ask is that the clan give him the same chance to prove himself that I have been given in human lands." Kragath was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, a slight smile tugged at his tusked mouth. "You always were stubborn, Grisha. Very well. The human may stay, and we will see what manner of person he proves to be. But understand, Philip Zimmerman, that our judgment will be harsh. Orcs value strength, skill, and loyalty above all else. You must demonstrate all three to be accepted here." "I understand," Philip said, "and I am ready to do whatever is necessary." The following weeks were a test of Philip's resolve. He was given a small room in one of the stone dwellings but was otherwise expected to earn his place. He worked alongside orc laborers on various clan projects, hauling stone, mixing mortar, learning orc construction techniques. The work was physically demanding, harder than anything he had done during the bridge construction, but Philip threw himself into it with determination. Grisha could not be seen giving him special treatment without undermining both their positions, so during work hours, she treated him as she would any other laborer, with professional distance. But in the evenings she would find him and they would talk, her presence a reminder of why he was enduring this trial. "How are you holding up?" she asked one night as they sat outside Philip's quarters, looking up at unfamiliar northern stars. "Tired," Philip admitted. "Sore in muscles I did not know I had, but I am managing. Some of the clan members are starting to treat me less like an intruder and more like a temporary worker." "That is progress," Grisha said. "Kragath has been watching you. He has not said anything to me, but I know him well enough to recognize approval in his silences." "I hope you are right," Philip said, "because I am not sure how much longer I can lift stone blocks without my arms falling off." Grisha laughed, the sound warm in the cool night air. "You are stronger than you think. I have seen how you have adapted, how you push through even when exhausted. The clan sees it too." A month into Philip's stay, Kragath summoned both him and Grisha to his private quarters, a spacious room carved from the rock itself. He gestured for them to sit, then poured 3 cups of a strong-smelling beverage Philip did not recognize. "I have made my decision regarding your partnership," Kragath said without preamble. "Philip Zimmerman, you have worked hard and learned quickly. You have shown respect for our ways without trying to ingratiate yourself falsely. You have treated my foster daughter with honor. These things matter to me." Philip held his breath, waiting. "I give you my blessing to bond with Grisha, should you both choose that path," Kragath continued. "And I extend an offer to establish a branch of the Stonehaven clan in human lands, with you and Grisha as its founding members. You will carry our name and our standards, but you will have the freedom to work where you choose and to build bridges between our peoples, both literal and figurative." Philip felt emotion swell in his chest. He looked at Grisha, whose eyes were bright with unshed tears. "That is more than I hoped for," he said to Kragath. "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet," Kragath said with a gruff laugh. "The responsibility of representing the clan is heavy. You will be judged by your work, and any failure will reflect on all of us. But I believe you are capable of bearing that weight, and I believe my daughter has chosen well." They drank the strong beverage, which burned Philip's throat but warmed him from within. When they left Kragath's quarters, Grisha pulled Philip into a fierce embrace. "We did it," she said. "We have his blessing. We can move forward now, build the life we talked about." Together, Philip said, holding her tightly. Always together. They spent the winter in Stonehaven, and Philip's acceptance into the clan grew steadily. He proved his worth not just through physical labor, but by sharing his engineering knowledge, helping to design improvements to the clan's water management systems and storage facilities. Grisha worked alongside him, their partnership becoming a model for collaborative work. As spring approached, they began planning their return to human lands. Grisha had received 3 more commission offers, including one for a major fortification wall. Philip had been invited to submit proposals for several bridge projects, with the explicit requirement that he work with Foreman Thornblade. "We are in demand," Grisha said one evening as they reviewed the proposals. "We can choose projects based on challenge and location rather than just taking whatever is offered." "I want to choose projects that matter," Philip said. "Infrastructure that will serve communities, that will make lives better. And I want to continue building bridges between humans and orcs, showing through our work that cooperation is possible." "Agreed," Grisha said. "We have something rare, Philip. A partnership that transcends species boundaries, that combines the best of both our cultures. We should use that to create something meaningful." As the snow melted and the mountain passes became navigable again, they prepared to depart. The clan held a ceremony to formally recognize their bonding, an orc tradition that involved exchanging forged iron bands and making vows before the assembled clan. Philip spoke his vows in halting orc language, promising to honor Grisha, to work beside her with integrity, and to uphold the standards of Stonehaven clan. Grisha's vows were in the human tongue, a gesture that acknowledged Philip's heritage as much as her own. When they exchanged the iron bands, sliding them onto each other's fingers, Philip felt the weight of commitment settle over him, solid and right. This was what he wanted, what he chose, regardless of the challenges they would face. The journey south was different from the journey north. Then, Philip had been an uncertain stranger, hoping to be accepted. Now he traveled as Grisha's bonded partner, a member of Stonehaven clan with purpose and direction. The world seemed full of possibility. They returned to Thornwick first, wanting to see how the bridge had fared through winter, and to show the mayor and townspeople that they had formalized their partnership. The reception was warm, and Philip was pleased to see that the bridge stood exactly as they had built it, weathering ice and snow without damage. "Your design modifications were perfect," Philip told Grisha as they stood on the bridge, examining the upstream pier faces. "Not a single crack or shift." "Our design," Grisha corrected. "You calculated the angles, I implemented them. That is how partnership works." They stayed in Thornwick for a week, accepting congratulations and discussing the bridge with local engineers who had come to study it. Then they moved on to their next project, a bridge over a gorge in the eastern mountains, a challenging commission that would test every skill they possessed. The years that followed were full and rewarding. Philip and Grisha built bridges across the region, each project strengthening their reputation and opening new opportunities. They trained apprentices, both human and orc, teaching the next generation to value collaboration over prejudice. They faced challenges and setbacks, dealt with difficult clients and harsh weather, but they faced everything together. 5 years after completing the Whitecurrant Bridge, they returned to Thornwick for the dedication of a monument honoring the builders. The town had commissioned a stone marker to be placed at the bridge's entrance, inscribed with both their names and a brief history of the construction. Philip stood with Grisha as the mayor unveiled the monument, reading the inscription aloud. "The Thornblade Zimmerman Bridge, completed in the 15th year of King Marcus's reign, built through the collaborative efforts of master engineer Philip Zimmerman, and master mason Grisha Thornblade, representing the union of human ingenuity and orc craftsmanship. May this bridge stand as a testament to what can be achieved when peoples work together in mutual respect. Grisha's hand found Philip's, their iron bands clicking softly together. "They named it after both of us," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "It belongs to both of us," Philip said. "As everything we build does." They stayed for the celebration, accepting thanks from townspeople who had watched them work all those years ago. Many commented on how the bridge had changed their perspectives, how seeing an orc crew and a human engineer work together had challenged their assumptions. As evening fell, Philip and Grisha walked across their bridge one more time, just the two of them. The stone was solid beneath their feet, the arches graceful overhead, the river flowing eternal below. "You remember the first time we stood here?" Philip asked, "when this was just foundation, piers, and ambition." "I remember thinking you were too young and too idealistic to complete a project this ambitious," Grisha said with a smile. "I remember being prepared to work with someone who would take credit for everything and blame me for any problems. And instead I found a partner," Grisha said. "In every sense of the word. Someone who sees me as an equal, who values my knowledge, who fights for me when needed and stands beside me always. Someone I love more than I thought possible." Philip pulled her close, kissing her there on the bridge they had built together. "I found the same," he said when they parted, "and I intend to keep building with you, keep loving you for the rest of my life." "That is a long-term contract," Grisha teased. "The best kind," Philip said. They stood together on their bridge as night fell. Two souls who had found each other against all odds, who had built something beautiful and lasting through collaboration and love. The bridge beneath them would stand for generations, carrying people safely across the river, a physical reminder that the strongest structures are built not from stone alone, but from trust, respect, and the courage to reach across divides. Their story was far from over. There were more bridges to build, more communities to serve, more challenges to face. But whatever came, they would face it together, partners in work and in heart, proving every day that love and skill recognize no boundaries of species or tradition. The moon rose over the Whitecurrent River, silver light painting the stone arches, and Philip Zimmerman and Grisha Thornblade walked home, hand in hand, their future as solid and sure as the bridge they had created together.